Church and state, are they separate issues? In the last section, we focused on historical events that put Christianity's unique and alternative outlook in crisis. Emperors Constantine and Theodosius embraced the Christian faith and made it the official religion of the Roman Empire. What followed was Constantinianism, and this Constantinianism changed the face of Christianity for centuries. Christianity held the religious and cultural hegemony in Europe, lasting for over 1,000 years. The alliance between church and empire led to the dissolution of the alternative Christian dimension, and by effect, consolidating the status quo of the Middle Ages. But the truth is that it is much easier to condemn events that happened more than 1,700 years ago than to update its effects on current context. It is easy to criticize religion, Christianity especially, and blame Christianity for the Crusades, the conquest of the Americas, or the Inquisition for that matter. But thinking this way can be skewed, anachronistic, and can finally lead to an unproductive reflection of the past. Unfortunately, these are the arguments that often dominate the public debate. Opinions loaded with stereotypes, generalizations, and exaggerations that don't contribute to a productive analysis. The Christian faith has in many ways allied itself with the power of its day throughout history. Today in the Western Hemisphere, there are two examples we can quickly identify. In the first place, the remnants of colonial Catholicism in Latin American countries, which more often than not has played an influential and fundamental role in legitimizing various dictatorships over the last century, and continues to extend its influence over current democratic governments. For another example, we can point to evangelicalism's political wing in the United States as being associated in many respects with conservative sectors and articulated more often than not through the Republican Party. A similar case that resembles the United States is emerging in many Latin American countries in their evangelical churches, especially Brazil. Whether in the Catholic Church and Latin American government, or evangelical churches with their influence over the various governments, including the United States or Brazil, Constantinianism is evident. Identifying more or less a state religion is very apparent in these cases. So I prefer not to stop at this point, but rather look at some related theological questions. Let's begin with a question. Is it that Constantinianism is an imminent danger only for the right or the most conservative social sectors? Or could it be that these Constantinianisms belong to a society in danger of extinction? Would the solution for a more evolved or less polluted church be then a more progressive or left-leaning government? Antonio Gonzalez offers a warning against this idea, a point that could be chalked up as a critique for liberation theology. Antonio Gonzalez warns against the suggestion that Constantinianism does not disappear when Christians become revolutionaries. In this case, loyalty to a present regime is replaced by adherence to the possibility of a future government. Perhaps the problem is when Christians begin to identify with a system of power that does yet not exist, but rather is expected in the future. The achievement of the power becomes the hypothetical solution for remedying society's ills, while those that distrust this strategy are accused of ignoring the world. Thus, Constantinianism still stands. Indeed, the vast majority of Christian communities do not identify with these movements. That's very clear. But there is a phenomena among many ex-churched Christians critical of the institution who have begun to see these claims, and perhaps without much reflection on the theological implications of these ideas, as a manifestation of the kingdom of God. The possibility for these left-wing or progressive governments become a placeholder for a kingdom which is fully universal and secular. As long as the state extends and protects individuals and collective rights, society will be increasingly healthy, purer, less selfish, and will get closer to utopia every day. Full justice will then come when specific laws are passed, or when particular types of education are extended, or when governments and market institutions are transformed. It is a vision rooted in trust for a future state of affairs without the kingdom of God. But the theological problem with these utopias is that they no longer need the reign of Christ for that liberating salvation to take place, but only for the expansion of rights under the tutelage of the state. In effect, taking God out of the kingdom of God. It is then no longer necessary to make a spiritual and theological exodus, as we have reflected in earlier sections. The new birth of a countercultural people and to subscribe to a collective vision of political exodus falls in the background of this secularized kingdom. The new humanity ceases to be the fruit of the Spirit at work in believers. Instead, it seeks to construct Victorian morality through politically correct acts sustained by public opinion that at times watches and punishes, which only reinforces its disciplinary model by cultural repudiation of those who fail in one way or another to that ideal. Many Christians are aligning themselves with this secularized and postmodern version of Constantinianism, and there are not many voices warning of the possible dangers of this line of thinking. Rather than challenging the status quo with hope of the gospel, this Constantinianism reinforces the omnipotence of the state power, making the spirit of this age less visible, even invisible. Believers no longer need to believe in the mysterious sovereignty of God. Instead, in this new scenario, God is a diffuse force that materializes in egalitarian society, disciplined by the state and watched over by public opinion. This Christianity does not represent any alternative, rather a synthesis of the new morality in the state.
Turn down for what?
Constantinianism is alive and well, wearing different colors and seemingly inhabiting opposite ends of the political spectrum. Whether conservative or progressive, these visions once again demonstrate how tempting an alliance with its temporal powers in fact is. But on the other hand, isn't it a good idea for the church to use state apparatuses to fulfill its mission? Wouldn't it be easier to Christianize society this way? We're going to talk about this in the next episode. But before continuing, I ask you to consider some questions. Where can you see in contemporary culture an alliance between church and state taking place? What characters and ideas in your context have become symbols of these conflicts? What would be the social and ecclesial consequences if some of these Constantinianisms triumph in your circle? That's all we have for now. See you next time.